Welcome, everybody. My name is Alison. I am a realtor at Inhabit Real Estate. And thank you so much for spending some of your day with me. I am acutely aware of how my piles of mess and laundry and dishes and you name it really impact my mood for the rest of the day. And it changes my energy and it changes the way that I'm feeling. So I can only imagine I'm not alone. And I'm so grateful that my friend Devin has agreed to share a little bit of how she goes about her day and how she goes about making sure that her clients are using the Konmari method to make sure that they're putting their best foot forward in these crazy circumstances. So without further ado, Devin, why don't you share a little bit about yourself and tell us what this Konmari method is all about?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Devin Vonderhaar. I'm a holistic home organizer and a Konmari consultant. In case you're unfamiliar with that term, it's Marie Kondo's method of decluttering. It's called the Konmari method. It's her last name and her first name fused together. I know that's kind of confusing for people sometimes. They don't recognize that name, but they recognize Marie Kondo's name. My business is called The Modern Minimalist. My mission is to empower the modern matriarch through organizing and design. I love working with families, with individuals, creatives, all kinds of different people here in Portland to organize their lives. So that's a little bit about what I do, and I'm excited to tell you all more about how I can help you all during this time.
Awesome. So Devin, what are some ways that we can use our time at home to reevaluate how our space impacts our clarity, the simplicity, the mindfulness? What are some really easy, like just spout them out, some like off the cuff ideas that you have for how we can kind of create a little bit more balance in our home?
Sure. I always like to tell people to start with creating a vision because that will kind of work through the rest of what you want. So maybe you want to journal about the problem areas that you really want to fix in your home. Maybe you want to go on Pinterest and look for ideas for something visual that would help you kind of reimagine a different area in your home, like maybe like a command center or something to just create systems in your home that will make everything run more smoothly. You could create a physical vision board. You can do this in a lot of different ways, but starting with a vision is really important before you get into the decluttering process.
Interesting. So I'm curious, how does an expert go about starting their day and ending their day? And I am asking because I'm sure it is so different from how I go about starting my day, usually with my son crying, trying not to hear him for a few minutes, and then immediately reading the New York Times on my phone, which is a terrible idea, I know. But walk me through. It's really not my mood immediately is soured and it's a mess. But I'd love to hear from you. Tell me, what should I be doing or aspiring towards?
Yeah. So my morning routine, I'm one of those crazy morning people who doesn't need an alarm. So I get up, the sun's light coming in our bedroom wakes me up.
What time is that ish?
Well, today it was 4:30, which is really early. That doesn't happen very often, but during quarantine, there's been, things are weird. So sometimes I wake up really early. Sometimes more often I wake up around 6:30. I wake up naturally. I have a water that I keep on the nightstand right next to me. That's what I drink first thing, just as a good reminder to start drinking water. I turn on my diffuser with some essential oils. I like to do music. I have a morning.
Still in bed?
What?
You're still in bed during all of this?
Oh, no. I've gotten out of my bed. So I turn on the diffuser and then I turn on music. I like doing the same playlist every morning just to get me energized for the day. Before I get up, I'm glad you said that, I do a grounding meditation, just visualizing, like connecting with the energy of the earth and then connecting up into the universe. I'm actually creating a blog on a couple different visualization meditations that I do. That's been really big. If nothing else, doing a grounding meditation has been one of the biggest things for me to stay grounded, obviously, but create that positive flow of energy first thing in the morning, create some consistency in my schedule. Sometimes I do some self-Reiki because I recently did a Reiki certification. So that's just like resetting energy and feeling where my body feels out of alignment and just taking a few moments to reset that. So that's pretty much what I do every morning. Then I feed the dogs, and then Jess, my wife, will wake up maybe 2 hours after I get up, and we'll connect. And then we start our days. Well,
wow.
we eat too, but
yes.
Yeah.
Details. So at what points, how often during the day are you kind of touching base with yourself and recognizing different patterns? Maybe if your neck hurts or you're suddenly overwhelmed with new work that's come onto your plate. At what point are you kind of checking in to make sure that it's not just building up throughout the day? How do you go about thinking about that?
Yeah, so I'm big on boundaries. I usually start working around 8, break for lunch for an hour around 12, and then I'll stop working between like 3 to 5, depending on how I'm feeling that day, especially in quarantine. You know, some days you have more energy than others. Some days the sun is out all day and I am so productive. Some days it's gloomy and my energy, I can so quick, you know, like yesterday, I think it was in the afternoon, it got gloomy and I was like, okay, I'm done. Like, I just don't have it in me anymore. So I think it's giving yourself grace to see some days are going to be great, some days aren't, and that's okay. It's okay to do both, because for me anyway, on the days I'm super productive, I think I almost make up for the days when I'm not. And I think trying to force yourself to be on all the time every day is much more damaging to push yourself to that burnout place. It just isn't helpful at all. So I like to really take every day.
Yeah, and kind of feel it out.
Yeah.
So would you say that your evening routine is equally as standardized as your morning routine, or are you a little bit more nimble?
Evenings are different. I'm definitely a morning person, so I think that's probably has a lot to do with it. In the evenings, I wind down work pretty early. I have a few hours to take the dogs on a walk, do dinner. We usually watch TV for a good chunk of time, especially lately.
Yeah. What are you watching right now? I have some recommendations. I watch a lot of TV.
Yeah, we just finished Little Fires Everywhere last night.
I did not like it.
Really?
Yeah, I thought it was a watered down version of Big Little Lies.
There were a lot of connections for sure.
Why was really casted as the same role? Anyway, if you haven't seen it yet, everybody, it's worth, if there's nothing better on, it's worth a casual peruse, but I gave it like 7 stars.
Wow. Yeah, I liked it. But we finished, I think we watched 2 episodes of that and finished that up. And then we usually try to get to bed between 10 and 11. It's been a little later lately, and I'll notice the difference. I also have a big sweet tooth, so I always have something sweet. And last night I made cookies at like 8 o'clock, which I'm noticing that today, if I eat sweets really late, it affects me the next day. So I'm trying not to do that. But again, give yourself grace. Like chocolate panic is a thing.
Well, I know that story well. So tell me a little bit about, so I am not a morning person. I am innately messy, or not, I'm not dirty, but I am innately messy. You talked a little bit about Pinterest and using that as a resource. For those of us who are not as morning person, who maybe don't run as tight of a ship as you do in your home, what are some ways that you talked about Pinterest? Can you tell me a little bit more of some ways that we can start utilizing some of the Konmari method in our own homes? Whether it be something very tactical, like something, the way that we're folding our clothes or putting them away right away. You know, I don't know if there's something, but I'd love to hear from you if there's some small actionable steps that we can take to start utilizing this mindset, especially knowing that we have very little control in this crazy world right now. And maybe there's some ways that we can try and create a little bit more balance and control in our own homes.
Sure. So creating calm during quarantine is definitely an important thing. One of the things we can do is control our immediate environment. So that is why organizing is so important right now, because there will be an immediate effect on how you feel in your space. It's been scientifically proven that in women, cortisol levels are directly related to the number of items in your home. So when you get rid of stuff, it literally lowers cortisol levels. So it's a very easy, actionable way to reduce stress. I have an initiative I call TMM Tiny Wins. It's my hashtag. You want to set a timer for like 15, 30 minutes, whatever you have time for, and then decide to just tackle one really small area and see what you can get done in 15 or 30 minutes. It seems like not that long, but you would be amazed with what you can get done. You could tackle maybe your pantry, going through your fridge. You could do like a section of your clothes. Maybe you could do like one drawer or a couple drawers in that amount of time. So find something small that you could do today. And that would be my biggest recommendation in getting started, so that you can start getting that motivation and start feeling like, wow, if I can do this in 30 minutes, then maybe I could tackle my whole closet in the next week, or, you know, just like break it up, chunk it out in little sections so that it's not overwhelming to all do at once.
I love that. Do you try and do the same 15 minutes every day? Like, okay, I finish eating and now I have energy, and before I get back into doing work or childcare, whatever your life looks like, do you have a set time of day that you're going about with these 15-minute little chunks?
Yeah, you could, if that is what feels good to you. Maybe for me it would be in the morning, because that's just when my brain feels like doing things. But if you're an evening person, then maybe you want to do it after the kids go to bed, or like before dinner, whatever works for your schedule.
Mm-hmm. And you're actively timing it. You're just saying, all right, you have 15 minutes, go big.
Yeah, that way you know, and it's like that accountability that, okay, I know that I'm on the clock. Like,
yeah, totally. I often think about that when I'm exercising. I'm just like, all right, I can do anything hard for like 5 minutes, and then just 5 minutes is up and I'm like, all right, I have a little more juice in me, I can keep going. So I think I agree with you. I think those small, almost like digestible, small little chunks of time really help with the psychology of it.
Yeah.
Cool. How would you recommend kind of instilling these behaviors with other members of the family? So I know in my home, I'm happy to use myself as an example. I am the weakest link. That's me. I will be the very first to admit, my husband used to work at Abercrombie when he was like in middle school, and he learned how to fold the shirts.
Yes.
Well, and I did not. So yeah, I am the weakest link. So how would you go about encouraging the same patterns and the same behaviors to make sure that everybody in the family is aligned, from the adults to the children of all ages?
Sure. So funny, my wife also worked at Abercrombie and very much enjoys folding the jeans. I don't know. That's not something I even enjoy, but
yeah.
As far as modeling it with your family, one thing about the Konmari method is that it is a very individual process. When you're doing joy checking, which is the process of creating the pile and going through every single item individually to decide if it sparks joy for you or if you want to let go of it, those decisions are individual. That being said, everyone can do this and make it like a game for the family. Like maybe one day everyone's going to go through their clothes, and then you can go to everyone's individual closet and go celebrate their little win for the day, and keep like a chart and like, I don't know, see who did the best folding, or like, I don't know, something like that to make it fun for everybody. For kids, they can learn. I've seen like, it's the cutest thing on Instagram, seeing like 3-year-olds like folding their clothes, and like, it's not going to be perfect, so give them grace again, but they'll be excited when you get excited for them, and they can start to learn. Kids as young as 3 can start to learn the folding method. So it can be a really great way for them to start learning independence and something that they can try to do for themselves. That's really easy. And
yeah, I like that a lot. So I'm wondering, I could see myself feeling super jazzed leaving this conversation, getting my timer going, and really like tackling my shoes or whatever it might be. For me, I know I need to clean out my closet, and I would love to donate some clothes to donate somewhere. By the way, if anybody knows of anywhere local in Portland that is accepting donations right now, please put it in the chat, because I don't know of anywhere and I have a lot to give away, and I'd imagine others do too. So I could see myself feeling really motivated after this conversation, but I'm curious, how do we keep this momentum going? How do we actually start building patterns and behavior changes?
Sure. So the biggest way is going through the whole method. I mean, starting small is a great way to start building that up, but then actually going through the method, which is you start with clothes, then you do books, papers, kimono, which is literally everything else in your house, and then sentimental. And the idea is that going through that process, you're going to hone in on your sensitivity to joy, and you're going to be able to figure out, with combining that with your vision, looking at who is the person that you want to be today. It's not the person that used to wear those dresses in college, or the person who still holds on to this shirt that you've had since you were 3 and you've never done anything with it. Maybe you thought you were going to use it for some project or craft or something, and you just never have, and you don't know why you still have it. But there's so many little things like this that you go through, and you'll start figuring out how to minimize. Once you go through all these categories, that muscle starts forming, and it's really interesting to see. Once you start living in a place of making decisions from your heart space and how things feel to you and getting in touch with that energy, instead of staying in your head and worrying about, price tags or how you should look or what you should be wearing. And I think that really, once you hone in on that, that is something that will expand into other aspects of your life. So the big thing is going through the whole method. And one of the things that I really recommend is accountability. So maybe you have a partner or a friend or somebody that you can just tell, okay, by this Friday, I want to be done with my clothes. I want you to check in with me, make sure I've done it, send a photo or something. Like, I think accountability is the best way to keep you motivated, because you're going to disappoint somebody else if you don't stick with it.
Interesting. I like that. I liked your example of the 3-year-old shirt. How would you go about thinking about if something is maybe something you'll want in the future and you're not sure and it doesn't spark joy at this exact moment, but you're scared to let go of it because maybe it's sentimental, or maybe you'll get around to making that quilt or whatever at some point? How do you think that through?
So if it's sentimental, you keep it, because that becomes a completely different category, that you'll keep all of your sentimental items together so that you can revisit them and feel good about them. If it's a situation where maybe you're between sizes, because that's something that comes up a lot, if the item is in a smaller size that you're trying to get into, does that item make you feel good? Does it motivate you to get to that new size? Or does it make you feel bad and feel guilty that you aren't there right now? So that would be the way that I would decide for between sizes, if you keep it or not. And then for something that it's like a project, you need to set a deadline and set it aside. Maybe you put it in a separate bag and put a Post-it on it and put, craft project or whatever it is, and set a specific deadline for when you're actually going to do it. Because if you just look at it and say, oh, I'm going to do that eventually, and then just put it back, you're never going to actually do it. So you have to set it aside and make it a point to really get to these things.
So would you say the same thing with, I don't know, jeans that you don't fit into anymore? I'm laughing because it's so accurate for my life. So jeans that you fit into, if you were me, you'd put a Post-it on them and say, you're either fitting into these in 2 months or they're out.
Yes. Set a deadline.
I'm going to have a lot more room in my closet pretty soon. Need to find a place to donate clothes.
Oh, 2 resources for not locally, but Give Back Box is one, and then ThreadUp.
Oh, yes, I'm familiar with ThreadUp. Cool. Yeah. Great. Perfect. And then in terms of thinking about storage, do you have any thoughts on how to go about creating as little clutter? I wish you could see I'm actually so grateful that you can't see my desk. I would get a lecture. Talk to me about your thoughts on clutter and reducing and just having cleaner lines from a visual perspective.
Sure. In terms of in a closet, is that what you're thinking?
Sure. Or on a desk, in an office space.
Okay.
What are some ways that we can use our physical space to produce calm? And I know, obviously, in a dream world, I would put my things away, but what are some small things that I can do? Is it really important that everything has its place?
Mm-hmm.
Love your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So in an office, I like to keep the desk as clear as possible. The only thing that lives on my desk is my laptop. Everything else has a place inside of the desk or storage space that I do just to create a calm work environment. And it's kind of part of the ritual of getting ready for the day, that you pull out what you need and then put it away at the end of the day. It's another way to kind of signal to your brain, like, this is the start of my day, this is the end of my day. So I definitely like in an office space to keep it as clear as possible. And then in a closet, the first thing is to use what you have. Like if you have built-in storage, use that first before you go buy anything. In the Konmari method, we do not buy anything until you have decluttered the whole thing. Like, do not buy anything until you have let go of all the stuff you're going to let go of in your closet. because you will find a lot of times that you already have storage devices in your home that were filled with other things at the time, but now they're empty. So now you can reuse that for something else. This is more cost effective as well. So that's great. Closet, we like using boxes if you don't have built-in storage. The biggest thing with clothes is to see everything you have at a glance, which is huge for me. I'm a very visual person, so I love being able to just open the closet and see everything I have. This saves you time, saves you energy. And that's where the folding method is really helpful, because you'll fold everything into these nice little rectangles, and then you'll put it inside of a box, so that way you can just look and see everything you have. And I like color coding too. So that's just an extra little pop of joy that when you open your closet, it looks like you're in a boutique or something. And it makes you want to keep it pretty and nice and organized, because it is so, it just feels good.
Do you color code your books too?
Yes, I do.
I always think that's very aspirational. It looks beautiful in a space. I like that. What else do you think about in terms of just space? I mean, everybody has their own aesthetic in terms of interior design, but does the KonMari method impact design functionality as well? Or is it mostly focused on the organizational aspects?
I think it's mostly organizational in nature. I'm definitely a minimal aesthetic, but that is not necessarily indicative of the method itself, or that I cannot work with people who don't have a similar aesthetic to me, because most of my clients do not. So yeah, that's completely separate.
Mm-hmm. It's actually a perfect segue. How do you work with clients?
Yeah, so in terms of like the process, in normal times, we have a phone consult, and then we have an in-home consult, and then we'll start working together, and we go through the method in the same 5 categories, and then we'll do storage. I also do like design, space planning stuff, depending on what the client needs. But yes, for virtual, which is what we're currently doing, we'll just do a Zoom or a FaceTime. The rest of the process is not part of it now. So
Sure.
yeah,
that makes sense. Cool. How are you finding, what are you hearing from your clients of how this pandemic is impacting the energy in their homes? I'm assuming everybody's on edge and we're just feeling a little bit less in control. Is that pretty much across the board with your clients?
Yeah, I think I've had a lot of clients that it just wasn't the right time for them to organize, and we'd been talking back and forth for a while, and they were just kind of waiting for the right time. But I always tell people there is no right time. You're never going to want to organize, because this is probably the thing that you're putting off, that you just want to kind of like forget, and just visually forget it's there. But now is that time, and now is the best time, because you are in your home and you'll feel so much different when you do it. So
yeah, I can imagine. So how did the KonMari method come to be? We know we've discussed that it's Marie Kondo's philosophy. Can you tell me a little more about the history?
Yeah.
So when we go show off to our friends that we took this class, that we actually know what we're talking about?
Yeah. So the KonMari method was developed by Marie Kondo. I always say she was a really odd human, because as a child, all she did was organize. She would organize her brother and sister's rooms, and they would get mad at her. So I think eventually she learned to not do that. And at school, when all the kids were at recess, she would be in the classroom organizing the cubbies. She didn't go to recess. She didn't play sports. She didn't have activities. Like, organizing was what she did all the time. So luckily for her, being weird led to being a professional organizer.
Yeah.
She started her business at age 19, and then she started a company she was working for. I think she was in sales or something, which she said it wasn't a good fit. But she started organizing in the office, and then other coworkers would notice, and then her boss noticed. So then she started working in workplaces as well. So she had a wide variety of different clientele that she worked with, but eventually she left that job and then was doing mostly work with clients in homes. And then she wrote the book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, in, I think, 2010 in Japan. And then it was translated into English in 2014. It's now in like 110 different languages or something crazy like that. And then she wrote the second book, and then the Netflix series came out last January, and then she wrote a kid's book, Kiki and Jax, which came out last fall. And then Joy at Work came out a couple weeks ago. Yeah, for workplace organizing. And then there's another Netflix series coming. There's all kinds of awesome stuff. So it keeps growing. And she got, I think the Netflix series got 2 Emmy nominations, I think. And then she was named like Time's one of 100 most interesting people or something like that a couple years ago. So there's all kinds of awesome accolades and things that have come from all of this. Yeah.
I wonder what kind of an impact she's had on us actually applying her learnings to our own life, or if it's just kind of this more voyeuristic feeling of us watching somebody else. It's kind of like, I wonder if there's any sentiment of, I know I love watching cooking shows, but I don't actually try making the dishes myself. So I wonder if there's any similarities.
I'm sure there is, because people are very attracted to just her energy, and she's just very interesting as a human, I think, because she is this just, she's very petite. When I went to New York for the seminar, like I met her and talked to her and stuff, and she's exactly what you see on TV, and it's just amazing. She's just like pure, positive, light energy in this tiny little body, and you're just like, oh my gosh, you're just the cutest thing.
Wow. What is the Konmari community like in terms of the certifications? You've actually gone through and become certified. What is that community like?
Sure. So there's about 350 of us worldwide now. They started the consultant opportunity in, I think, 2016. Anywhere in the world. I think they started in America, but then you can be certified anywhere in the world now. They do at least 2 trainings a year, usually in New York or LA, and then London. I think they're expanding that, which I'm sure that'll kind of shift a little bit now, but they're going to start doing virtual trainings too, so that'll be exciting to see. But I got certified last March, and there were, I want to say I was like 220 or something. I don't know for sure, but there's been like 100 in the last year.
Real deal, folks. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So before we get into questions, I want to leave today's conversation knowing that I am very clear on my homework. So I'm going to set my timer for 15 minutes. Like I said, I'm going to get after my shoes. At some point, I will do my refrigerator and my pantry, but I'm going to start small. Are there any other homework assignments? If we were to have a little to-do list in our head, nothing feels better than crossing something off a list of things to do. If we were to start a little to-do list, what are some things that you think during this time where we're all stuck at home, we're balancing so many different parts of our lives, it's really hard to do every single one of them well. A lot of times there are so many balls in the air that we're just picking and choosing and doing our best. But with all that in mind, I'm wondering, what are some things that are very actionable that you think maybe we can try and use as homework, so that when we come out of this, we feel like our homes are cleaner, our energy is a little bit more calm? Just walk me through what you would do, knowing that we have hopefully 8 weeks left.
Yeah. So the first thing I would do is you can go to my website, themodernminimalist.biz, and download. I have a visualization exercise that you can go through, answer some questions just to start getting those gears turning on what your vision looks like. I would then do your vision, whether that be journaling or going on Pinterest or whatnot. You could do that with a 15 or 30 minute timer too. So that could be one, maybe, so if you're doing this like once a week, go download 1 week and do your vision 1 week. And then I also have a KonMari checklist on there that you can download that goes through all of the categories and subcategories. So you can start picking out like, okay, this is a subcategory I could do today.
Example, yeah.
Yeah, so you could go through that, and that could be, I mean, I don't know, 5 or 6 of the 8 weeks there. And then I also have a digital declutter checklist if you wanted to just go through email. I did that, and I think I did a little video on it I think that took me 10 minutes to just go through my email and set folders and just delete out everything else. That feels amazing to look at your inbox and see nothing there. It's crazy.
Wow. So that's really interesting. I didn't think of the KonMari method as applying to the digital space in addition to the physical space, because that applies to desktops and screenshots and emails and downloaded things. Wow.
Yeah. It's a whole nother world. She doesn't specifically go through it in the magic of tidying up, but I kind of adapted my own little thing on it based on what I've learned in the method. And then she talks about it a little bit enjoy at work, which it's more workplace focused, but you can definitely do all of these things for your own personal use as well. Because you totally could, if you're motivated, you could go through the whole 5 categories in the next 8 weeks. Like, it's totally possible. And then you could go through storage after that. And then just naturally, this isn't like a little 15-minute thing you need to do, but you'll start seeing as you go through this and do this work, how things shift and how your mind starts shifting in terms of like when you're thinking about buying something new, like you'll really start pondering, like, do I really need that? And like, you'll know like, oh, I already have 5 shirts just like that at home. And it's really interesting to see the natural process of how your brain shifts as these things happen.
Do you adhere to the less stuff, better stuff philosophy?
Yeah, I would definitely say I'm definitely a minimalist. Part of that was moving cross country from Ohio and literally just having the U-Haul in the car be how much stuff we could fit in there. That was it. So I was forced in some regard into minimalism, but it was a really great thing for me, because then once you have less, then you really just start thinking more intentionally about everything you have.
Mm-hmm. And then my second part of this question is, I follow where you're thinking about the minimalist attitude with shopping for material goods, but does that also apply to how you grocery shop?
It could, not as directly, but definitely in terms of like bulk foods. I tie in a lot of like sustainability aspects as well, just because I kind of feel like it's all one big universe. Once you start getting intentional about one aspect of your life, the rest kind of follows naturally. I feel like the brands that you support, like the ethics behind the companies, what kind of packaging they come in, all that kind of stuff starts. It's a whole, there's levels of this, you know.
Oh, of course. Do you think that the goal is to have an idea of how you are using all of the different ingredients that you bring into your home? Or is it okay to be like, I'm going to buy celery and I'll figure it out?
No, that's fine.
That's
especially now, like, I just go with what creative juices you have going. I'm sure you'll figure it out. That's one of my favorite things, actually, especially in quarantine, is to play the like open the fridge and what can I make game.
I know, I bet there's some really cool recipes that have come out of that. And my last question for you before we actually open up the floor to questions is, how do you work with buyers and sellers?
Yeah, so I have a couple different things that I do. I always recommend people declutter before you move, because it just makes everything easier if you have less. I always hear people saying how stressful the moving process is, especially when you're buying and selling. So anything you can do to make that less stressful will be very, very helpful. So I've worked with clients who we worked together right before they were moving. And then I've also worked with people once they moved into a new place. And in those situations, perhaps you moved from like an apartment into a home. You've never had this much space before. You don't even know what the vision looks like for this new extra bedroom you have, or whatever the case may be. So we can walk through creating that vision for the new space, and also doing like space planning and styling and a little bit of design work and things like that. I also do a minimal staging option for people who don't want to buy anything new, or it would be using everything you have already existing in the home. So it's a much more sustainable approach to just maybe taking some things away, so it just looks a little more minimal and is more cost effective than hiring a regular stager. So that's another option that I offer.
I like that. I'm imagining that's super cost effective, and I love the idea of using the whole buffalo and trying to be as thoughtful in your staging as possible. That's great. Does anybody have any questions? If you'd like to, you can either unmute yourself or go ahead and ask a question in the chat. I think we're going to end a little bit early, but I want to make sure that we get all of the questions answered.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am as familiar as I can be through reading her books. And so I did my closet, I did my clothes like she suggests. And I feel like I did a really good job, because I have that feeling that you're talking about. Like, I just love being in that space. I want to leave the door open. I want to look at it. I want to admire it. I want to do all those things.
Yeah.
But I'm also not working right now. So I kind of feel like it's staying nice because I'm not really using it. So how do will it stay nice? What are some tips that I can do to keep it nice?
Sure. So as long as you're doing, depending on what your closet looks like, once you have the system in place, it makes everything much easier to continue the maintenance. But the biggest thing is just the folding, which I find that the folding method may take a little bit longer to get down to get into a rhythm of practicing it to a time where doesn't take as long anymore. But other than that, I feel like it's already kind of set in place for you. And then once you have that framework, it's much easier to do your like maintenance tidying. I found that once I did the entire method to my whole home, like I could clean up everything in like 20 minutes just because the method, everything has a home. Everything's like with like every item of one type is all together in one place. It just makes everything just becomes easier.
Okay. So second question, what if your partner is not on board?
Yes, this happens all the time. Yeah, husbands are never as on board because scientifically they don't have the same feelings that women do. When, like, if I move this phone off, like it literally feels differently and I can feel that. And I think a lot of men don't have that sensitivity like we do. So yeah, that happens a lot. The idea behind Konmari is that you doing this process and seeing how your energy shifts will entice them to want that for themselves. We can't force other people to do it because they have to have their own autonomy and make their own decisions for themselves. But we hope that when we do something that helps us, that other people will also want to come on board with that, and you'll be more than willing to teach them and help them along the way once they're ready to do that.
Okay, so just let it go and wait.
Yes.
Okay.
Just hope they'll want to soon.
Okay.
And we have a question from Maya. I'll read it from the chat. It says, how do you understand why you might be more motivated to organize at your place of work or put away your husband's things before you're motivated to do it for yourself on your own? How do you recommend changing that motivation? That is very interesting.
I think that has a lot to do with, I was a counselor also, so I think there's a lot of deeper underlying things going on here. Perhaps that you feel like you don't deserve to have I'm sorry, my dog is in here. That maybe you don't feel like you deserve to live from a place of joy, or you feel like you have to take care of everybody else and you're putting yourself last. And I definitely encourage you to look at what are those underlying messages that you're giving yourself that are keeping you from putting yourself first. Because I think that this process will be very life-changing for you once you're able to see and hone in on what does bring you joy and what that feels like to be able to give back to yourself in that way.
Is the thought to always take care, if there's people in the home with equal responsibility to we all are holding each other accountable, is the goal to really take care of yourself and your partner will take care of themselves?
Yeah.
That's really the goal.
Definitely. I mean, there's still obviously going to be cases where we're doing each other's laundry and things like that, but the idea would be that each person is kind of autonomous for their own stuff.
Cool. A question from Eliza. She's really good at starting projects and really bad at finishing them. Any tips for follow through when we might start organizing a closet, old photos, etc.?
Yeah, so break it down into smaller sections so that you can finish and then build it up. And maybe, so you start with your sock drawer and then you'll build up to doing all of your shirts in short sleeve, long sleeve, sweaters, and kind of build that way. Don't give yourself, start with something really, really small and then work up as you feel comfortable. So that way you can start finishing things, because it's important in terms of motivation to get that feeling so that you have that continued motivation to keep going.
Was the thought then, instead of taking everything out of the closet and making it like, I'm going to spend my entire afternoon organizing my closet, maybe it's looking at the closet, thinking about visualizing, using language, visualizing what the end result might look like, and just tackling, all right, today I'm just going to get to one small project. I know I'll finish it. I'll be able to put everything away and not leave a mess on the floor and be scared of the room. Yeah,
that's a huge piece of it too, is when you have that vision and that beautiful Pinterest board of what it's going to look like once you're done. That's another great motivator to keep going.
Cool. And it sounds like you rely pretty heavily on Pinterest and Instagram and other visual tools to sort of form what the end goal might look like.
Yeah, I do. I think it just appeals to me personally, being a very visual person. And I think that Pinterest is just, I don't know, it's just a lovely thing.
It's fun.
Love
Yeah.
Pinterest.
Question from Katie. My husband and I did KonMari, mostly led by me, but we're struggling with putting stuff away, even if it has a clearly established home. Any insight?
I'm wondering are there specific categories that you have issues with putting away? Like, is it clothes that you have to fold it and that's like an extra step? Is that what's keeping you from doing it? Or I'm wondering more specifics on what the issue is there, because you really want to figure out what is it that is keeping you from putting it away. Is it the time? Is it, because if you have an established home, I'm wondering what else could be keeping you from that.
Can you hear me? I just unmuted myself. Okay, sorry. So I honestly don't know. I feel like there is not a theme. One thing is that we live in a really small apartment, and so like one thing left out makes the whole place look like very untidy. But yeah, I honestly don't know. It's just been so, I remember reading the book and going through the method and kind of like looking for like, wow, this is, I'm so excited to not have to tidy every day. And that, yeah, I find we're still doing it.
Yeah. Okay. So did you go through like the whole 5 categories? And
we did.
You decluttered each category and like got rid of all the discards and all that good stuff?
We did.
Okay. So now you have a system in place for where everything lives in your home, right?
Yeah, but we just don't, there's just not the follow through of putting stuff away. So like we'll even come home and it's like, we put our coat on the couch instead of in its home in the closet, or we'll put our bag on the floor instead of like 3 feet away in its home in the basket, or like, we'll watch TV and then the clicker doesn't go to its home on the night or on the like TV stand.
I'm wondering if the space isn't resonating with what you want, or if the homes simply aren't working for you all. Maybe you need to reevaluate what is a more realistic home for different things. I'm not sure. That's an interesting one. I feel like I'd have to see.
It's very frustrating.
Yeah, that sounds frustrating. Because I feel like when we first moved, we were in a 700 square foot apartment. So I did feel like I was cleaning all the time, but I felt like I liked it being tidy. And because it was so small, I needed it to be tidy all the time. But I think there's a motivation issue there.
Yeah, probably.
Katie, we will make sure, I will follow up with everyone afterwards. And if you have follow-up questions for Devin, we will make sure that you guys get to connect and maybe talk through some of these nuanced little spots, the home's not working. Cool. Anybody else have any other questions? All right. Well, thank you all so much for spending your afternoon with me. I know that we're all juggling so many different parts of our lives, so I really appreciate your interest and your engagement, asking questions. I hope you got something out of this. As you know, small businesses need support now more than ever. Please follow Devin on Instagram at The Modern Minimalist. I am Alison Derse, and you can follow me at Alison with 1 L, Derse PDX. We look forward to staying in touch with you. And if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to follow up with us via email. Thank you, everybody.